from the Department of Communication in Phillipsburg. This is a special edition of Inside Government with Cedric Peterson.
To our audience here at home and around the world, you are now Inside Government. Welcome to the program. As you are aware, we are still honoring 10 years of service that the Public Service Center has rendered to you, the people of St. Martin, and our journey through government continues as we continue to speak directly to service departments that render direct services to you, the people of this country. And our journey this week takes us into tax administration. So my guest in this edition and the brave soul that has stepped forward to help us get some insight into government services is none other than Miss Shadira Friday. She's a representative of the Tax Administration Inspectorate. Shadira, thank you so much for joining me in this edition of the program.
Thank you. Yes, I'm happy in being here in the efforts of better informing the public of our services.
Absolutely. And it's great to have you. Taxes, of course, not an easy topic to always get into because once you start talking, I can imagine all our audience going, mm-hmm.
For sure.
So,
you can expect that.
Yeah, and the thing is about it what I like about speaking to you about it is that the customer service quality that I see in you stands out. I can see how effective you are in making sure that information gets to the public when it comes to tax administration, a very complex subject within itself. But I want you to first start off with me here in establishing, how long have you been a civil servant?
I've started in 2020, so only 3 years I've been a civil servant.
Jeez. So freshman, sophomore, so this is your junior year as a civil servant. Well, welcome. Tell us, what has the 3 years been like for you?
Oh, well, it's been very informative. You learn a lot working in as a civil servant. You learn a lot more than you expect as an outsider looking in. Your expectations when you're someone outside.
Absolutely.
Your assumptions and expectations are different than when you're actually working internally. So it has been quite a journey on my end.
A little bit of a learning curve that you had to step up to. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into the services now that are rendered at tax administration. And let's just start from the beginning, because it is a process when one comes into your office. Let's start off first and foremost with establishing where one can get information. I guess you have what is a front office. Explain how it all begins when someone comes to the tax office. What's the first thing that happens?
Okay, when you walk into the tax office, our front desk, internally known as the Bally, we are the department that will accept your documents that has to be submitted and distributed within the respective departments for assessing. That includes your tax forms, your income tax forms, that includes your business registrations, changes, if you need to speak to your collection officers. We're the face basically of the tax administration. There you get all your documentation. You will get majority of the documentation that you will need to be tax compliant and to submit. So it works out itself there.
Okay.
Overall.
All right. Well, let's break it down a little bit and let's start with the business aspect of things. So I'm coming in and I'm a brand new business. Take me through that process of what is the first thing I'm expected to do when dealing with the tax administration when it comes to my business.
Yes. So we have a business registration form that has to be filled out. With that form, we would like as much as possible for the clients to be as open, as straightforward with the filling out the form, in the sense of you have to really read to understand the form. At the beginning, it's the name of the business, not your personal name. You mentioned that. There is a portion that we will ask for your start date, of the business. It differs from your incorporation date that is listed on your chamber's document. Uh, so be mindful there. It has to be within the 3 months of submitting the form. So if in the event you submit the form today, August 17th, it must be within August to December of 2023. And if it's not, we will, or you don't mention anything, we will then use the date of incorporation mentioned on the chamber's document. Uh, as I mentioned, the chambers is one document that has to be attached. It is mandatory. So when you go into the chambers, please make certain that the address, the information that is listed is accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So we are, correctly informed, as well as your shareholders registry. It's different businesses, rightfully, forms of businesses. You have BVs, NVs, sole proprietorships, private fund foundations, associations. They all differ, but we do have a list of requirements attached to that form, so you know exactly what is expected as an attachment on the document. As well as we would like to make sure that persons include at the bottom of the registration form, they are requesting that you fill in the amounts. That it's just basically a random number. It's a guess, really, because until your business is actually up and running, you're not certain how much you're expected to make.
Absolutely.
And you just have to be, mindful of that, because then it will be on our responsible on our end to fill in a figure on your behalf, and sometimes it benefits and sometimes it doesn't. So, and if they can have that form filled out, if you receive it online, if they can type in the information rather than write, or if you're writing it in, it be in block letters, so it's as legible as possible for us on our end, so we can have everything in order there.
Okay, that's pretty good. So when you're filling out the document online, you're saying that I can actually type in the document just to make sure it's as legible as possible, huh? That's a feature.
Yeah,
okay.
It helps us on our end. It helps us on our end because we have the issue where the handwriting is not.
Yes, hard to follow.
We don't understand. It's hard to follow. Or when printing the document out, sometimes because you scan it so often, ever so often on your end, by the time it reaches to us, when we print it out, it's not visible, and we have a procedure. We have to stamp it in and rescan it within our system, so it defeats the purpose on our end if it's done that way. So it helps.
I heard you mention the various types of businesses. Is there a difference with any of them? Because the first thing you started off talking about was the fact of the incorporated version of a business. Then you started to break down the various types of businesses, of course, sole proprietor and so on and so forth. But is there a difference recognized at the tax administration as it relates to these respective types of businesses?
Yes. More obvious one would be like the sole proprietor. It's your personal information. You alone. It's sometimes you will be the only worker, the employee, and the owner of the business, of course. We are only expected to open most of those businesses for turnover tax and wage tax if you do happen to have additional employees under your belt. With that sense, we are not looking, you won't have a deed of incorporation, you won't have a shareholders registry. We would just expect that your business registration and chambers and identification, valid identification, is attached for us to complete your request on our end. And for private fund foundations, most of them, they are nonprofit, so we don't receive shareholders there either. And we do, you follow up more with board members, and they're assisting with in associations and foundation. They're assisting with other programs and other businesses. They're working with them and the community in the various ways. So they are also exempted first from specific tax compliance.
Okay. Okay, and you're getting into some of the aspects of what I was looking at next with regard to what's next after a business is registered at the tax administration. What would then be, once I'm registered, what is then the next step that one should keep in mind?
Okay, the next step is that the date that you mentioned on your form, you are obligated to file from the month prior. So month after, sorry. It's such as, like I said, if your incorporation date was August 17th and you didn't provide us with a start date, as of September 15th, you begin to file your forms. You have to file your turnovers, that's monthly. Then you have your profit tax, that is yearly, and also wage tax. If you're NV or BV, your wage tax is also monthly forms that you have to be filled, that has to be filled in. So as tax compliant as possible. And if you don't do so, assumptions are made on this end. Calculations will still go out on our end. The system will still generate its own information there, and it causes an issue on your end if you're not you're not transparent with us on this end. Yeah.
I want to make sure that I have a good accountant at that specific point, just to make sure
for sure,
I keep numbers correct. Yeah. So
and you always have to be mindful to have your copies as well when coming in and submitting any form of documentation. You have your copied proof of whatever form you're submitting within the tax administration.
That's interesting. So it's important then that one keeps their copies, and is that because there is a limited amount of backup at the tax administration, and in what period of time if one is?
I would say, well, we hold documents within a 10-year period, depending on the document itself. It's within 10 years because we do have, at some point, have to let go for space value, of course. And it always saves you at the end, because things do happen internally where, you brought in your information. At some point, it was stamped in, it was claimed to be received on our end. However, say your tax form, your income tax form, you brought it in, it was stamped, but I gave you back both the original and the copy. So we never registered it in our system. It's very rare that happens, or you misplace it.
Right.
In any way, we're not obligated to give copies back. So we always ask clients, taxpayers, businesses to have additional copies in hand, because when you are in the need of a request of any form from the tax administration, you will need to show your proof of tax compliancy in that sense.
Okay, great. Shadira, we're going to take our first break. Folks, if you're just tuning in, I'm having a great conversation here with Shadira Friday, taking us inside tax administration and getting some insight in regard to the services rendered to you, the public of St. Martin. My discussion with Ms. Friday continues right after these public service announcements. Stay with us.
St. Martin, the time to join the fight against heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, and cancer is now. The Ministry of VSA, in collaboration with SZV and PAHO, are launching a nationwide health survey that's coming to a district near you. During the months of July to October, you may be chosen to participate by our fieldwork interviewers. Get near instant results for your blood pressure, cholesterol, BMI, and glucose. For more information, contact us via stepsurvey@stmartingolf.org.
Hi, everyone. If you're just tuning in, I'm having a conversation with Ms. Shadira Friday. She's a representative of tax administration under the Ministry of Finance. And Shadira just basically helping us out here with understanding what you need to do as a business when registering and making sure that you take the necessary correct steps to ensure that your business is properly registered at the tax administration.
Yes.
Um, Shadira, I want to get now into quickly because we don't really have much time. So I want to break down,
Hmm.
and it's a lot of information. So
Yes.
personal, just
Hmm.
getting that person started with
Hmm.
registering at the administration. First of all, a crib number. Is
Hmm.
that the responsibility of the first business that I go and work for in my
No.
job career, or is it my responsibility to ensure that I get a crib number in advance?
It is always your personal responsibility to receive a crib number. It's your number. It's not no one else's. It's not your job's. It's yours. So it's to show that you are tax compliant. You are um, a citizen of St. Martin and you're giving back to the country and you're keeping track of what is being done on your end to support the country of St. Martin.
What happens when one loses their job? Um, Working and lose your job, am I still obliged to file at the tax administration? I'm not
Yes,
getting
you
any
are.
income.
No, well,
Really?
you're not getting income, but you are surviving somehow. So you will need to still indeed file your tax forms annually. Uh, you will, if in the event you lost your job for quite some time and you have been receiving assistance from maybe a parent, spouse, friend, any sort of family member, whomever, they would then have to provide you with a letter themselves indicating Shadira Friday, has been supporting whomever for the past few years due to unemployment. And I would have to provide you with a copy of my identification card or passport. And that is what you would attach in your tax form. The rest of the tax form, you just basically put in your name, your address in full, and your crib number, your phone number, and you would mention that you're unemployed. The rest of the tax form is basically empty, or you put zero, but you have to have that letter indicating, yes, indeed, someone is supporting me. You have to show some form of proof. Some persons do claim to have been living off of savings. It's not mandatory at that moment to provide it. We will accept the tax form. If you're claiming that, can note that on page 23 of the tax form that you are currently living off of your savings. But it is a possibility the assessors will contact you for some form of proof because we will need to know, well, the tax administration will need to know if this person is indeed okay and surviving efficiently out there.
Shadira, take me through the process of personally completing the form for an individual who is registering at the tax administration. What will that process be like when a person comes to your office for the first time?
Okay, when you come into our office, you can get the form online as well.
Okay.
Most forms you can be provided it via our online website, that government page directly. It is mentioned there. It is called the personal registration form. You will indicate your name, your address, uh, be mindful of your address because most persons you have to attach if you're a citizen of St. Martin, you are registered within our census department. We will require that you provide us with a detailed census registration as a first time taxpayer
Okay.
requesting a crib number on your end. So your registration form can have an old address mentioned on it, but when you're filling out the form, you claim to live somewhere completely different. Be mindful, we will use the proof that you provided, which is your detailed census registration form. We're going to utilize that address. So you will have to be mindful. You either go in, you make the changes at the census, note that currently we're not working directly with them. So the information that you bring in is what we use on our end. So yes, you fill in the form, you have your name, the address, correct address where you're residing, your phone number. It will ask you the reasonings for um, requesting your crib number now, for whatever reason it be, maybe for work, for government assistance, whatever it is, you can mention that there. We will update that form to ask persons to mention the year that they would like for us to open them for, because in the event that you have been here in St. Martin for many years, and you never, this is the first time you're asking for a crib number, you're being, registered within our system, but you have been employed for the past 5 years, you will have to indicate that. So you'll put in for the 5 years. We're in 2023 now, so 2018, 5 years back. You put 2018. We will automatically open you for there. But as we give you your crib number, you are obligated to file from that year
From the time that you
to
receive it.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
The address situation, does that affect anyone? How does that adversely affect one over a period of time when address information is not accurate? Is Can you explain?
Yes, it will affect you in the sense that if you have any assessments to receive or any information that it has to be sent out to the public, most times we mail information, documentation out to the public. If you don't indicate the correct address, you will not receive it. And most times it will end up coming back to us because maybe the individual who is now residing at that address will come in and say, hey, I don't know who this person is. So we're unable to reach you. Sometimes if we happen to have a phone number in the system, we can give it a call, but sometimes, phones get damaged, issues happen. So it's
Yeah.
better that we already have that accurate information so we can provide you and find you if necessary to make sure everything
Make
is
sure it's in
working.
order and working. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Okay, so personal deductions. People are always looking for, I say people, but we all are looking for some type of tax break of some kind. So
Mhm.
the term personal deductions, what personal deductions can one place in your personal income tax form, so that you can possibly, you know, be, eased up on the tax situation? And what types of things allow me to get those types of reductions? Explain that process for me.
Okay. For most persons who are employed, it is
Hmm.
your wage tax card, your loan belasting card that is provided by your employer yearly. It's usually at the beginning of the year, each year. That will be attached to the form. The deductions are already made there. However, if you're looking for a refund on that end, most times I notice it's only if you're a homeowner, you're paying a mortgage, if you have any loans outside of that, car loans and so forth. Those are also additional deductions that can be made that can lead to you receiving some form of refund. And also, in the event where you're probably insured at SZV, but at some point the medical insurance can't cover a specific procedure,
Right, right.
and you're doing it out of pocket, you can, I think there's up to a certain amount you can claim on your taxes, and
Hmm.
then there you will be refunded. That I won't be uh, specific on because
Okay.
it depends. It all depends on what you provide. But I know some persons try to put in the daycare for their children. They
Hmm.
don't make those things as deductions. Your rental amounts, your rent amounts, your GB bills, they do not deduct those expenses out of your your taxes for returns. That is your responsibility.
Gotcha.
Yes. Hmm.
I'm going to have to invite you back so we can do a program just specific to
Yes.
deductions and see how exactly that works.
Yeah.
Let's quickly get into that situation of filing income tax for people in specific types of odd jobs, taxi
Hmm.
drivers, bus
Hmm.
drivers.
Hmm. Hmm.
How does that work in that situation at the tax administration?
Okay, for taxi drivers and bus drivers, they are to make a balance sheet, invoice sheet for themselves monthly. The taxi drivers, bus drivers can tally up at the end of the day, at each day, the amount they made, and then at the end of the month, the total that they paid, and indicate that on the form. And if you make, be mindful that it is your form of income. Your vehicle is your source of income. So if you make any gas station trips, you hold your receipts there. If you have to fix anything on your vehicle, it's been in the shop for X amount of time, you also have to hold receipts there because it all has to be attached to that tax form. So proper deductions can be shown, so when you're being assessed, they can take into account the amounts that you have already spent and been compliant with on your end. So I would advise taxi drivers and bus drivers to always hold receipts when necessary and make your figures out monthly, because you have to be vigilant in that sense so you are able to be assisted on our end properly.
So as we're closing out the program, Shadira, I want to be able to give our audience the ability to be informed as to where they can get these forms.
Okay.
Tell us
Um,
where, and then provide final words as we close out the program.
okay. You can get most of our forms on the government website directly. Uh, that is, you just type in Government of St. Martin. It usually transfers you to the home page. You can render online services as well there directly from there. It will, you type in the short search bar whatever document you may be looking for at that
Hmm.
moment. It
Right.
will come up to a general page which will offer all that same document for multiple years and additional documents that you may not have known that you needed at that time. You can find it there on the government website. Or if you do um, want to receive the document with your information already attached, you can request a username and password, which gets you into the portal where you can download and print these documents on your own. That's online services at stmartingov.org. You can do that as well, or you
Hmm.
can send an email to taxinfo at St. Martin Gov, St. Martin spelled in full for all these sites,
Right.
gov.org, and we will be able to assist you or direct you to the respective departments when necessary. And yeah, that's basically it.
All right. Shadira, thank you so much for taking the time to have this informative session with us, and wishing you continued success, of course,
Thank
in
you.
your journey as a civil servant, since you're just starting with us as a fresh face. So thank you so much for the service you've rendered so far. And
Thank you.
we invite you to come back and be with us in the next edition of our program.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
And to our radio listeners, online viewers, and television viewers, thank you for tuning in and being a part of this discussion with Ms. Shadira Friday, representative of Tax Administration Inspectorate under the Ministry of Finance. If you missed it, be sure to tune in or catch video on demand at the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, facebook.com/SXMGOV. Of course, we invite you to subscribe to the Government of St. Martin YouTube channel, youtube.com @Government of St. Martin. And for audio playback, be sure to tune into St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM throughout the course of the day. On behalf of all of my colleagues down at Tax Administration under the Ministry of Finance and all of us here at the Department of Communication, I'm Cedric Peterson. Thanks so much for tuning in.